Other early residents were the Curtis family and the Hamilton family, who lived in Pella and Knoxville proper. And of course, in 1849, 5 years later, we have the Earps coming to the area. They all live within 20 miles of each other, all centered around Pella, which, though the county seat is Knoxville, other than the court, there's not a lot of things happening there. So Pella is the social mecca. So they're all gathered around that main city. And I know what you're thinking. Some of you are like, why are there 3 spots for the Earps? Well, that's because they had tons of pre-existing Earp relatives in this area. Actually, they were there before the Fox and the Sac were force evicted. They were there before the county was even surveyed. And I believe during several periods of their life or their time in Iowa, they lived in various homes with their family that was already there. In fact, I would argue that this house, the Spankeren Row House, was not really where Wyatt grew up. In fact, I think he only lived there from mid-1859 to 1860. And I've written about that a few times. I'd be happy to answer your questions some other day. The Rousseaus were faithful members of that Methodist church in Pella. That church was founded by the Hamiltons and attended also by the Earps. And I really, really know that because it was the only Methodist congregation for years until way after their journey together. So that's it, folks. Besides that, though, the patriarchs were involved in city government as aldermen, as lawmen, law clerks, recorders, and they have been interacting with each other for at least 12 years, some of them 20 years. So they really did know each other. Their move from Iowa was generally political, and everyone likes to lean on Lake and Flood saying, oh, they're all racist Democrats and they're out of it. That's not true. They have individual family needs and motives. The Rousseaus were motivated because Sarah had arthritis, and it was debilitating. She was in a wheelchair and could not walk without rickety-cricketies in her hip, right? So she was seeking the climate cure. The Curtises were avoiding the draft. They had a lot of older young boys, and they didn't want to keep paying for a draft deferral. That hit Daddy's pocketbook a little too hard. And the Earps, of course, y'all know that Governor Bill Stone in 1863, he announced that in Iowa, they were going to give black freedmen full citizenship rights. And at that point, Nick Earp said, oh no, we're out of here. Altogether, they formed the Pella Company wagon train, and they traveled 2,000 miles across the United States. There were 8 vehicles and 34 souls to start. Others would casually join in, and some of the original members did leave. According to a Curtis descendant, the 3 older Earp boys, that would be Jim, who was there, Wyatt, and Morgan, were acting as guards, and they called them outriders, and they would also provide some meat to the company on that journey. Again, Nick was the first leader in that journey. Instead of this taking them 3.5 months, do you see what it takes? 7. That's bad news. When they were moving, and this again is with Nick as the leader, right? When they were moving, they averaged 12 miles a day. That's not okay. They needed to be moving 20 to 22 miles a day in order not to turn into a crisp on the Mojave or to become the Donner Party 2.0, right? So this is a really dire situation for them. They didn't pack for 7 months. They don't have what it takes livestock-wise to endure that journey. So we're going to end up in a bind at the end of this.